Good morning all. Welcome to a new physiology class. Today we are going to learn about functions of gastrointestinal tract. So here we can see you can see various functions of gastrointestinal tract. So GIT is responsible for breaking down food and supplying body with water, nutrients and electrolytes needed to sustain life. It helps in ingestion, digestion, absorption, and digestion. So next is about the organization of gastrointestinal tract. So gastrointestinal tract, this diagram is the cross-section of gastrointestinal tract. This is actually the cross-section of small intestine. So when we take the cross-section of small intestine, the outermost layer is the serous coat or serosa, and this is otherwise known as serous layer. And inner to the serous layer, there are two muscle layers. One is the longitudinal muscle layer and one is the circular muscle layer. The longitudinal muscle layer is seen outside and circular muscle layer is seen inner to the longitudinal muscle layer. Then inner to the circular muscle is the submucosa, and inner to submucosal layer is the mucosa or mucus layer. And all the digestive glands which produces digestive juices are present in the mucus layer. Mucus layer is in close contact with lumen of the gastrointestinal tract. So lumen is the inner hollow space found in the gastrointestinal tract. So innermost layer is the mucus layer, outer to it is the submucosa, then circular muscle layer, longitudinal muscle layer, and serous coat. And gastrointestinal tract, in this diagram, you can see two types of plexuses, nerve plexuses. They are the Meissner's plexus and Meyenteric plexus. So Meyenteric plexus is otherwise known as Auerbach's plexus. So Meissner's plexus and Meyenteric plexus, they are the part of the local nervous system of digestive system. So digestive system is supplied by two types of nervous system. One is the local nervous system and another one is the autonomic nervous system. So the local nervous system of digestive system is the enteric nervous system. So Meyenteric plexus and Meissner's plexus are the two plexuses of enteric nervous system. And the Meissner's plexus is seen in the submucosal layer of gastrointestinal tract. So it is otherwise known as submucosal plexus. And Meyenteric plexus or Auerbach's plexus is seen between the circular and longitudinal muscle layer. So these are all about the different layers of gastrointestinal tract or how the gastrointestinal tract is organized. So about the enteric nervous system, which is the local nervous system of gastrointestinal tract. It consists of Meyenteric and Meissner's plexus, and the autonomic nervous system is otherwise known as extrinsic nervous system, and it has two set of nerve fibers. They are the sympathetic and parasympathetic nerve fibers. So this is the nerve supply of gastrointestinal tract. Then about the Meyenteric plexus or Auerbach's plexus lies between longitudinal and circular smooth muscles and innervate both layers, and it is motor in function. And it increases the tone of the gut wall, intensity and rate of rhythmic contraction, and velocity of contraction of excitatory waves along with gut wall. Then Meissner's plexus. This is otherwise known as submucosal plexus or submucous plexus. This lies between inner smooth muscle layer and mucus layer, mainly sensory in function, and is controlled with exocrine and endocrine secretion of gastrointestinal tract. Then extrinsic nerve supply. This is by the autonomic nervous system. So all know that autonomic nervous system consists of two subdivisions. They are the parasympathetic nerve fibers and sympathetic nerve fibers. Parasympathetic nerve fibers, it functions through the release of acetylcholine, which causes increased motility and tone of muscles, then relaxation of the sphincters throughout the gastrointestinal tract, and increased secretion from the stomach and intestine. Secretions means secretion of digestive juices. Then sympathetic nervous system, its function is it functions through release of epinephrine and causes relaxation of gastrointestinal musculature, decreases the motility and tone, contraction of sphincters, and inhibition of the secretions from stomach, and inhibits the intestinal secretion. So in inhibition of secretion of stomach, digestive juice secreted from the stomach, as well as the digestive juice secreted from the intestine. Then about the parts of gastrointestinal tract. Gastrointestinal tract begins from the mouth. Then the second part of the gastrointestinal tract is the esophagus. So mouth contains the digestive glands. They are called salivary glands, and they secrete the digestive juice, which is known as saliva. Then the function of this part is mainly mastication. Mastication means chewing of food into chewing of food. The food is chewed, and as a result, the complex food particles are broken down into simpler form. After the chewing, the food is swallowed. Then we also study disorders of swallowing in this topic. Then about the mouth and salivary glands and their secretion. So we have 3 pairs of salivary glands in our mouth, 1 pair of parotid gland, 1 pair of submandibular gland, and 1 pair of sublingual gland. So we have 3 pairs of salivary glands. All the glands secretes saliva. Then about the composition of saliva. Saliva consists of chylin, lysozymes, kallikrein, lipase, mucin, immunoglobulin A, sodium ions, potassium ions, calcium ions, chloride ions, SO3 minus ions, bicarbonate ions, phosphate ions, Br, etc. And there are some organic matter present in the saliva. They are urea, uric acid, creatinine, and free amino acids. And the pH of the saliva, it is slightly below 7 at resting state and 8 during the active secretion. Then about the functions of saliva. In short, saliva helps in digestion. It helps in the under this topic we have to study the action of mucin. Then saliva has some protective function. It helps in the excretion of some drugs, and it helps in the protection of tooth enamel. Then about the short description of stomach. Stomach is a part of gastrointestinal tract which is seen between esophagus and intestine. It is actually a sac-like part of gastrointestinal tract. It consists of the upper part of the stomach is cardiac stomach, and it contains fundus and body, and also it has antrum. And the lowest part of the stomach is the pyloric sphincter. And the body, fundus and the body secretes mucus, pepsinogen, and HCl. And the antrum of the stomach secretes mucus, pepsinogen, and gastrin. So the main secretion of stomach are mucus, pepsinogen, HCl, gastrin, etc. Gastric juice. Gastric juice is a digestive juice secreted by the various digestive glands present in the stomach. The main gastric glands and the cells present in them are chief cells. Chief cells are the cells which releases the protein digesting enzyme pepsinogen. Parietal cells secretes the acid, that is the HCl. Then cardiac tubular glands are present. They secrete soluble mucus. Then pyloric antral glands, they secrete soluble mucus. And stomach contains G cells, they secrete gastrin. This is the diagram of gastric glands. So gastric glands are tubular structures. Sometimes it is seen as racemose in pattern. So these are the various cells which lines the gastric glands. We can say chief cells. Chief cells are the cells which releases pepsinogen. Then ECL cell. ECL cell is extra chromaffin-like cells which secretes histamine. Then parietal cell. It is a peculiar type of cell which is found in gastrointestinal tract, which releases HCl and also HCl is acid and also the intrinsic factor. Then mucus neck cells are present which secretes mucus. Then the gastrointestinal tract is a tubular structure and it has a lumen. So the different cells which line the gastrointestinal tract, they produces their secretion, and these components are secreted into the lumen of the gastrointestinal tract first. From there, through a channel called gastric pit, these secretions are poured into the lumen of the stomach. Then about the composition and functions of gastric juice. The daily secretion of gastric juice is about 2.5 to 3 liters per day, and its pH is about 1 to 2, and its reaction is acidic in nature. Because of the presence of HCl, gastric juice is acidic in nature. Then it contains electrolytes like sodium ions, potassium ions, H plus, Mg2 plus, Cl minus, HCO3 minus ions, hydrogen phosphate, sulfate ions, etc. And it also contains pepsinogen, renin, gelatinase, gastric lipase, lysozyme, urease, carbonic anhydrase, intrinsic factor, and water. These are the various components present in the gastric juice. This is about the secretion of HCl. So HCl is an important component of gastric juice, and it is secreted by the oxyntic cell. So the HCl is a combination of H plus ions and HCO3 minus ions. So from the lumen, actually HCl is present in the lumen of the parietal cell. So from the blood, the so H plus ions are secreted into the in the parietal cell. The water is water reacted with carbon dioxide to form carbonic acid. So carbonic acid is highly unstable. So it splits into H plus ions and HCO3 minus ions. So the H plus of HCO3 minus ion is formed, and this is released into the lumen of the parietal cell in exchange of K plus ions. Cl minus ions are actually diffuses from the blood. So Cl minus is actually seen in the form of NaCl. So in the blood, NaCl splits into Na plus ions and Cl minus ions. This is then diffuses into the parietal cell, From the parietal cell, the Cl minus ions diffuses into the lumen of the parietal cell. Then in the lumen of the parietal cell, H plus ions combines with Cl minus ions to form HCl. From the lumen of the parietal cell, it is then secreted into the lumen of the gastric glands. Then from there to the through the gastric pit, it enters the lumen of the stomach. So this is how HCl is produced in the parietal cell. Then the regulation of HCl secretion. So HCl production is increased by the action of histamine, acetylcholine, and gastrin. So there are three main stimulants for the increased production of HCl. They are histamine, acetylcholine, and gastrin. And the one which decreases HCl secretion is prostaglandin E. The next is the regulation of secretion of gastric juice. It is regulated by both neural regulation and hormonal regulation. So neural regulation or nervous regulation is by local autonomic reflexes involving cholinergic neurons and impulses from the CNS by vagus nerve, GRP, and acetylcholine. And humoral regulation is by a chemical called gastrin, which is secreted from G cell. Then about the phases of gastric juice secretion. The gastric juice is secreted by three phases. They are cephalic phase, gastric phase, and intestinal phase. Cephalic phase, it is due to the vagal stimulation. Then gastric juice, it is in cephalic phase, there is secretion of gastric juice from the gastric glands by the entry of food in the mouth. Then second is the gastric phase. Gastric phase is the secretion of gastric juice by the entry of food in the stomach. And intestinal phase, there is secretion of gastric juice by the entry of food into the small intestine. That is the duodenum. First part of small intestine is the duodenum. So the 30 to 50% of gastric juice is secreted in the first phase and 50 to 60% in the second stage. And a very small quantity of gastric juice is secreted in the intestinal phase. And in this phases of gastric juice secretion, gastric phase is the most important phase. Then about the applied physiology of gastric gland. The disorder of gastric gland is the peptic ulcer, the most important one. So peptic ulcer is due to the breakdown of the mucosal epithelial barrier of stomach or duodenum, and it causes disruption of the mucosal bicarbonate barrier or hypersecretion of HCl. And this is managed by peptic ulcer is managed by antacids, H2 receptor blocking drugs, M3 receptor blocking drugs, proglomide, and omeprazole. The next part of the gastrointestinal tract is the small intestine. Small intestine is a part of gastrointestinal tract seen between stomach and large intestine. There are three parts for small intestine. The first part is the duodenum, then second part is the jejunum, and the third one is ileum. And there is one peculiarity of small intestine is the presence of villi. So villi is the finger-like projections of mucous membrane of small intestine. And small intestine produces a digestive juice known as succus enteritus. So about a brief introduction of functional anatomy of small intestine. It contains mucosal surface. Mucosal surface contains 20 to 40 villi. per millimeter square of mucosa, and on that cell, small intestinal cells, we can see microvilli, and this increases surface area for absorption. And each villus contains lymph vessels, smooth muscle fibers, continuous with muscularis mucosae, arteriole and venule with relevant capillary plexus. So actually, villi are the finger-like projections of mucous membrane of small intestine. Between villi, we can see crypts of Lieberkühn. There are actually glands, some type of glands in the small intestine. It also contains goblet cells. This goblet cell secretes mucous membrane, secretes mucus. Then argentefin cells, it secretes secretin. Pan cells, which secretes defensin, guanylin. Epithelial and Paneth cells produce a great variety of enzymes, digesting protein, fat and carbohydrates, and endocrines activating trypsinogen. Then duodenum, first part of small intestine, it contains Brunner's gland. Take alkaline mucus secretion. That is the main function. Then jejunum is the second part of small intestine, which contains goblet cells, mucosa shows maximal foldings, decay circularis. Then ileum, it also contains goblet cells and aggregated lymphatic follicles, pairs, patches. And the ileum continues with the large intestine. Large intestine is otherwise known as colon. Then another important part of gastrointestinal tract is the liver. This is a diagram of liver. Liver is a gastrointestinal gland, or it is a digestive gland which secretes the digestive juice, bile. So the bile is a digestive juice which is secreted by different cells present in the liver. These cells are known as hepatic cells or hepatocytes. Hepatocytes are the cells which synthesize various components of bile. And from these cells, the bile is then transported to the ductal system, first into the small ductules, then it is poured into the large ductus. Finally, a large two common ducts are formed. They are the right and left hepatic duct, and this join together to form common hepatic duct. Then bile is actually synthesized by the liver, and this bile is then stored in a structure which is seen near to the liver. This is known as gallbladder. So bile is collected in the gallbladder through cystic duct. So the function of the gallbladder is it acts as a temporary storehouse of bile. Then whenever the food enters the small intestine or the first part of small intestine, which is the duodenum, bile from the bile which is stored in the gallbladder is poured into the small intestine. About the liver, then gallbladder, and also in this picture you can see the pancreas. Pancreas is one of the another important structure of gastrointestinal tract that we will discuss later. Then about the composition of bile. So bile is a greenish yellow fluid which is secreted by the hepatocytes of liver. It is actually a digestive juice. So the amount of bile secreted per day is about 500 to 1000 ml. And the pH of the bile is about 7.8 to 8.6. And the amount of water present in the bile is about 97%. And it contains bile salts, bile pigments, alkaline phosphatase, and electrolytes such as sodium, potassium, calcium ions, chloride ions, and HCO3 minus ions. And the bile pigments are the biliverdin and bilirubin. The amount of the water present in the bile is 97.97%. Then bile salts 0.7%, bile pigments 0.2%, cholesterol 0.06%, inorganic salts 0.7%, fatty acids 0.15%, phosphatidylcholine 0.2%, fat 0.1%. Then about the bile salts, it is one of the important component of bile. It contains sodium and potassium salts of, it is a sodium and potassium salts of bile acids. Primary bile acids formed in liver from cholesterol are cholic acid and cholic acid. These are converted by the colon bacteria to deoxycholic acid and ethylcholic acid. They are the secondary bile acids. This conjugate with taurine and glycine to form taurocolate and glycocolate. Then the osmotic pressure of bile is about 290 milliosmoles per liter. There is enterohepatic circulation. Entero means small intestine, hepatic means liver. That is the circulation between small intestine and liver is the enterohepatic circulation. The enterohepatic circulation of bile salts is essential because limited pool is available for digestion and absorption. Then the action of bile, hydrotropic action, that is, it is amphipathic in nature. Then micelle formation is one of the another important function of bile. Emulsification of fat is also important. Then active lipase in intestine, diseases of small intestine causes increased excretion of bile salts in feces and increased excretion of fat. Then functions of bile. Bile salts helps in digestion and absorption of fat and helps in absorption of fat-soluble vitamins. Then neutralization of acid, excretion of drugs, adrenocortical and other steroid hormones, toxins, bile pigments, solubility of cholesterol. Then about the last topic of bile or liver is the control of bile secretion. Bile secretion is regulated by nervous regulation or neural regulation, hormonal regulation, then by choleretics and by cholagogues. So neural regulation is by vagal stimulation, that is by the contraction of gallbladder and relaxation of sphincter of Oddi. Then hormonal humoral regulation is with the help of two chemicals. They are the secretin and CCK-PZ. Then choleretics means they are the substances which increases the secretion of bile, that is both bile salts and bile acids. Then cholagogues means substances cause contraction of gallbladder. So these are all about the secretion of bile from liver, their composition, regulation, etc. These are all about for today's topic in digestive system. Thank you.